conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is the man behind Canada's mortgage to zero movement, and other than Mr. Camilo Rodriguez.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Welcome, Mr. Camilo on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yes, Daniel, I've been in the mortgage industry for about 25 years. I started working for a major bank for TD Canada Trust. I opened my brokerage mortgages lab in 2010, and I grew it to about 60 agents. And I'm the past president of the association, Mortgage Broker Association, and I'm super happy to be talking about a topic that is to my heart, which is how much super high interest, overall interest, we're paying in Canada on mortgages.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Camilo. Truly, our topic today is truly important. Interest rate versus cost of credit, the most expensive mortgage confusion in Canada. So tell us, Mr. Camilo, the best mortgage is not the one with the lowest rate. It is the one with zero balance. You're currently telling Canadians that my single thing they've been trained to chase. The lowest interest rate is actually a trap. What gave you a courage to challenge such a deeply ingrained belief?
Yes, Daniel. What happens? So in Canada, when you are in the mortgage industry and you're helping people, purchase homes with mortgages, the number one question that everybody would ask you, to banks, to mortgage brokers, to mortgage specialists, or any person in the mortgage industry, is what is the lowest rate that you can get me? And the reason, if you think about that, the reason why they're asking for that is for two main reasons. Number one, because as prices are very high here in the lower mainland, they want to have a low payment. They want the home to be affordable. Okay, that's underneath the mortgage rate, the number one need. And the second need that people kind of relate to the mortgage interest rate is how much interest I'm going to be paying to the bank over the length of my mortgage. Okay. So, my point and the reason why I wrote my book, From Debt to Zero, is that people, after they get into a mortgage, the number one number that they should focus on is no longer the interest rate, it should be the cost of credit. So let me explain what that means. When you have a
Yes, go
mortgage,
ahead.
you make a mortgage payment every month, right? If you take an amortization schedule, which is a table that shows all your payments, every payment has a portion that is interest and a portion that is principal. Okay. Now, if you do the math and add all the interest from all those payments, you will get to the cost of the credit or the cost of credit. Okay. And that is a number for every Canadian, not only in the lower mainland, but throughout Canada. And that number you should know by heart. Let's say if you have I'm just going to give you an example, of 500,000, and that your interest rate is 4%, let's say, over 30 years, and you calculate the total amount of interest, it's going to give you, this is not the actual amount, but I'm just going to give you an example, 400,000, right? So that's the cost of credit. Your job as a family leader would be to minimize the 400,000, and that not necessarily happen getting the lowest mortgage rate, because the lowest mortgage rates comes with other features that may prevent you from lowering the cost of credit. And that's what my book is all about. I have 10 chapters about this same topic, and I'm hopefully, if a person reads the book, they will realize what they're missing, and like a lot of my clients, they are now focusing only on how much interest they pay in the bank. If you are able to reduce that from 400,000 to, let's say, 285,000, huge savings. Imagine $125,000 less over the length of the mortgage. That should be your main focus. Okay. Does it make sense, Daniel?
Makes sense, Dr. Mr. Camilo, makes sense. You started your career as an electrician engineer, trying or studying in Colombia and France, before reinventing yourself as a mortgage business engineer to solve a financial problems for families. Was there a specific moment when you realized that engineering logic applied perfectly to a mortgage math, that rates and costs were two different equations?
There is a concept. As an engineer, I actually loved studying electrical engineering. It's just that my path in life was better served helping people with their finances. But when you study engineering or an electrical engineering, you learn a concept called reverse engineering. Reverse engineering means you take the end result and you go back to the basics. You go back to the basics until you find all the problems and or how it was designed, and you can recreate it. Okay. So what I did in, and thank you for showing the book on the screen here. What I did in From Debt to Zero was I reverse engineered bank profits. If you see all the interest that all Canadians are paying, for example, in my example, the $400,000 interest or cost of credit, it's exactly what people in business call the lifetime value of a customer. That is how much you're worth to the bank in dollars. When you look at their financials and their projections, they if I have that mortgage, they would say, okay, if we keep Camilo as a client and we can give them the best rates and whatever, we'll give you points, we'll give you, banks, checking accounts, whatever. He's gonna give us over the length of his mortgage, 400,000 Canadian dollars. That's a number very important to the bank. So I start thinking, okay, if the bank is making $400,000 from every client that I have, from you, Daniel, from myself, from everybody, 400,000, how are they making that money? So I started looking at all the areas that in a mortgage specifically, I'm just relating to mortgages, that they're making or maximizing that profit or that cost of credit. And by going through that process of reverse engineering, I was able to create a framework, which I explained in my book, called Payoff. It's just like a slogan, or not a slogan, like anyways, it's just a framework. Every letter stands for something that you should be aware, because if you keep attention on those six letters, PAYOFF, you will be able to reduce your cost of credit. And that's basically what I've been doing for the last couple of years now.
Interesting, Mr. Camilo. You live in Europe, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. How do you see how other countries handle mortgages and consumer credit shape your understanding of what's broken or uniquely confusing about the Canadian system?
Um, I don't think anything is broken in the Canadian system, Daniel. What I actually love banks. When I started as a mortgage broker early in my career, I relied on a line of credit to pay my bills because I didn't have much money. So I had to have a line of credit, and it was very stressful because I was in debt. And again, as a mortgage broker, you earn commissions. So if you're not able to lend money, you don't make any income. So it was really stressful. And the banks gave me a line of credit, and I was able to pay my bills, including my mortgage, and feed my family in order to advance my entrepreneurial journey, right? So there's nothing wrong with the Canadian system. But what people don't understand is that you cannot get advice. If I have a vested interest, if I'm going to make $400,000 and you ask me for advice, I'm going to protect my 400,000. I'm not going to give you advice to reduce the 400,000 to perhaps 200,000. Does it make sense? Because there is a conflict. The bank is an entity for profit, and they're amazing and wonderful organizations. I'm telling you, I love them. But my purpose with this book is to help Canadians reduce debt, reduce the mortgage. That's what I call it, from debt to zero. I actually, it's funny because I'm in the mortgage industry, but I actually want everybody to feel what I feel right now. I have zero mortgage after many years. I want them to feel having zero mortgage and zero payments. So I'm going to do anything I can for them to get to zero mortgage as soon as possible. Okay. Now, when you compare to, because your question was, you compare to other countries like Mexico, like the US, I lived in France, like Europe, um, even the country I'm from, Colombia. It's amazing, but the needs are the same. If you talk to a person in Europe, in North America, in South America, and perhaps in Asia as well, they all want to have a roof over their heads, and most of them want to own that roof, and they do not want to have any debt regarding to that roof. It's the same needs. We're all the same. Yes, the rules are different in Mexico, the interest rates in the United States, in Europe, rules, qualifications, payments, but those are the minor details. At the at the bottom, at the source of the problem is one, a safe place for a family to live. Number two, zero debt. You don't want to be owing anything on that property. That's, if we want to make it simple, that's the simplest you can get. I'm an electrical engineer. I haven't practiced electrical engineering for a long time. I can complicate it any way you want. I can make it more complex. But at the core is just to those needs, and those needs are shared, I would say, throughout the planet, not only a few continents or countries, throughout the planet. Go and talk to a person in Africa, or go and talk to a person in, now that Greenland is in the map or whatever. Everybody wants the same thing.
Certainly. Your book's title identifies the confusion between interest rate and cost of a credit as the most expensive mortgage confusion in Canada. In simple terms, can you walk us through the distinction why the two mortgages with the same interest rate end up with costing family tens of thousands of dollars differently?
So the best way I can explain why interest rate is different than cost of credit is, I'm gonna exaggerate this, Daniel. I'm gonna exaggerate it. What let's say, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. Right now in Canada, the government just allowed banks to lend on multifamily projects, right? So if a developer wants to develop a project or whatever, they can get loans up to 50 years now. On residential homes is 30 years. On development for multifamily is 50 years. Where do you think a person will, or a borrower will pay more money? And I'm going to give you two examples. Number one, a person with a 4.5% interest rate over 30 years, or a person with a 4% interest rate, so a lower rate, half a point, over 50 years. Which one has the highest cost of credit? It's and I
I
know,
think it's a 50 years.
yes, you got that
Is
right,
it?
Daniel. The
Mhm.
longer the period that you have with the bank, the more money they can, because money is just rent on the money. Interest is just rent on the money. That's all it is. Interest is just rent on the money. So what you're allowing the bank is to rent you the money for a longer term,
Mm.
right? If you rent a home and you believe in home ownership, the first thing you wanna do is you need to get out of the renting situation into purchasing a home. And usually you get a mortgage. The confusion is that when you own the home, or you have the home with the mortgage, you stop there. Well, you're still renting, Daniel. You're still renting the money. So what is your next step? And that's why, again, I'm sorry, I'm, I'm repeating it myself again. I wrote the book is because I want you to stop renting the money.
Hmm.
So finally, you own the home. When you own the home, what happens? Ah,
You're building something.
you, I look at all my clients. They have payments anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500 a month.
Mhm.
I would their financial situation will change forever the moment that that payment from 500 to 4,500 disappears. It becomes zero.
Mm.
I talk on the book. The problem is that people treat the mortgage payment as a similar to a Netflix subscription. It's just a payment that they have to do. No, it's not the same because number one, the mortgage payment is arguably the biggest payment that any household has in any family. Is the mortgage payment. That's the biggest payment. So you need to pay 10 times the attention to that payment versus the Netflix subscription. You cannot treat it the same. And the second one, as long as you wanna watch Netflix, you always have to make the payment. With a home, you don't always have to make a mortgage payment. The faster you can get rid of, if you invest 30 bucks on my book and you learn something, how to the second part is amortization compression, how to shorten the amortization. Um, there will be 5, 7, I don't care, 10 years before that you finish with your mortgage payment. Now, imagine you can actually finish 10 years before Daniel. Those 10 years at $2,000 a month, let's say $2,000 a month times 12, $24,000 without any interest. Times 10 years, you can save for those next 10 years $240,000. That's huge money. So what I want everybody to think about is what is better to focus on the cost of credit so you can get out of the mortgage and save 240,000 or keep negotiating 4.1 or 4% or 4.2. Those differences doesn't make any difference in your financial life. I've never seen anybody become rich or become super well off or have a better quality of life because they were able to negotiate a better rate with banks.
Mhm. So, Mr. Camilo, you've said that changing rates is costing Canadian families hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of extra payments to the bank. That's a staggering claim. Show us the math. What is it actually look like for a typical family with $5,000 mortgage?
What do you mean? A $5,000 payment, or
Yes, as they paying for every month.
so it depends on the amortization. So
Mm-hmm.
a $5,000 payment initially, for example, if you go for 30 years, I don't have my calculator here or my table, but let's say from the $5,000 payment, 4,000 is going to go to interest and only 1,000 to principal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the second month, you paid a little bit of principal, $1,000, so you only owe, let's say, $1,000 less. So the interest on the next payment is not going to be $4,000, but maybe 300, $998, right? Because you paid already $1,000. But you keep the same payment, so you pay a little bit of more principal, so $1,002, and then you keep going forever and ever. The difficulty is that nobody thinks in terms of cost of credit. So nobody pays attention to the inside numbers that are making banks all the profits. If you look at it in another, I've been always amazed, and I'm going to repeat this for the third time. I love banks. I love banks. Banks are the
Uh-huh.
best, and I love the Canadian system because it's very secure. It's very conservative. Okay, people are safer here because of regulation, because of the government, because of the banks have tight guidelines. Okay, but at the end of the day, that interest that you're paying is profit to the bank. Okay. And I'm not scared. I know that if this idea that I have for you, Daniel, becomes really big and everybody's paying attention to the cost of credit and they're changing their behavior on choosing a mortgage, not on the interest rate. The interest rate is important, don't get me wrong. It's an important part. But choosing how they can reduce the cost of credit, I'm not going to be popular with banks. I'm not going to be popular with banks because they're not going to like that I show this information. But from experience, I know, and it's actually, I'm working with clients right now, and I'll tell you what I do with them. And this is an application that I have on the go right now. They came for a mortgage renewal. Okay, they were 20 years left on their loan, on their mortgage. Okay, and I did some restructuring. I showed them the concepts on my book, and I provided them with several scenarios. And one of those scenarios was they were able, by rearranging their finances, to pay their 20-year loan in 12 years. They also said that they wanted to buy a rental property. Okay, because they wanna, like all of us, Daniel, once we have the roof, one of the other things that we're looking for is retirement. When I'm no longer able to work, what I'm going to do. So for some people, buying a rental property is a vehicle to get there. And the plan that we designed for them was to focus on paying off their principal home in 12 years, and then after their mortgage is paid off, they're going to buy a rental property. Now, if they do that, in my humble opinion, the risk is very low. Why? They have no payment in their home. They're able to buy a rental property. So they start with a mortgage all over again. Now they have the help of a person who is renting that property. So they have rental income and they have the full income to pay that mortgage faster as well. So they don't have to wait another 25 years to pay that rental off, because now if they focus on it, they would be able to pay it perhaps in half the time.
Very
So
well said.
does it make sense?
Makes sense, Mr. Camilo. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in sixth season. Abstract Poetry in third season. And of course, my book 101 review in sixth season too. A comedy 101 fourth season. And my food 101 in sixth season as well. Geography 101 love letters. Movie 101 review. Music 101 our fifth season. Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast, Trivia 101, Motivation 101, Spiritual Awakening 101, Entrepreneurship 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Coaching 101, as well as my Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Camilo, you book ask families to ignore what they've been trained to look at the rate and focus on something harder to see, the lifetime cost. If you could sit across from a young couple signing their first mortgage tomorrow, terrified they're making mistake, what would you want be the last thing they hear before they pick the pen?
So it's very simple. And I just created a calculator for everybody to uh, to find out what their cost of credit is. If you go to my website, to mortgageslab.ca, you will find a button there to say calculate my cost of credit. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have a bot that's going to ask you 3 4 questions, and then he will give you the cost of credit. That's the number one step, Daniel, because once you know that cost of credit, everything becomes easier, because the second step would be how we're going to minimize it, how we're going to reduce it, how we're going to make it zero. Okay. So if you're listening to this, if you like my idea on cost of credit versus interest rate, go to my website, mortgageslab.ca, and calculate your cost of credit. You may see my contact details there. If you want to shoot me a text, or if you see me on social media as well, send me a DM and we can continue the conversation there.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Camilo Rodriguez because if you support him, for sure, more and more from debt to zero will rise. So, Mr. Camilo, thank you so much for your time.
Daniel, thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it, man. And I know we're neighbors, so I hope to meet you in person very soon.
Definitely. I'm inviting you to please do come over to my book one review and let's talk about more from that to zero. I'm going to invite you through PadMats. And Mr. Camilo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks a lot.
Modican people, see you soon.